So last week we completed verse 16 from chapter 4 of the Gita, which I had explained in detail. It's an important concept. He says here, even the wise are deluded as to what is action, what is inaction, right? So this whole play of the inactive self, consciousness, God is the inactive principle enlivening all action. First of all, the whole world is deluded with that basic fact. People believe that divinity has an active role in shaping your life. It's completely opposite. It is the enlivening principle, like the sun above is essential for life. It enlivens life. But the sun has nothing to do with how you act or what happens to your life. Even if you understand this basic principle, your whole life becomes totally different. You understand that you need to work on yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you. They can't. Nobody. I told you, right? Even in the Gita, so many times, Krishna directly tells Arjuna, I can't do anything. I can guide you. But you are your friend. You are your enemy. So he says, even the wise are deluded to understand action and inaction. Not only that, the delusion extends to how to get to the self, how to evolve. Even that is a mass of confusion. So it is this ego and the desires coming out of this ego which are the impediment to your spiritual evolution. So these selfish desires you have to replace with unselfish desires. But the problem is, even there you get involved. Some selfishness comes in. So the delusion is thinking that just because you're serving, helping, you're growing spiritually. Not necessarily. If that action is polluted by a desire, however subtle it could be, like I was explaining last week, you may not want appreciation from others. That itself is a high state. But you may want inner appreciation from yourself that I have done something good. You indulge in that feeling. That itself becomes desired. So it's not easy. That's what he says. So the highest grade of action is selfless. It is done because it ought to be done. There is no personal feeling coming into it, whether you like it or don't like it. So he says, even the wise don't understand this. So what is action? What is making you evolve? What is making you devolve? What is making you stay the same? See, even if you are genuinely spiritual, there are other aspects of you which are material, sensual. Now you may do spiritual action, but if you're continuing doing the other type of action, you'll remain the same. Very interesting. So you may think I'm doing my spiritual practice, but you're not growing. You're just maintaining your level, which is what happens to most people. After a while, you have to put in effort just to maintain whatever you've grown, right? It's like earning money is one thing, but then you have to put in effort not to dissipate it. Most people, they earn and then they dissipate it in some stupid action. But that doesn't mean you're earning more just because you're maintaining your current level of wealth, right? That itself requires effort. So spiritual growth is like that. Just because you grow, to maintain that growth, you have to put in effort. But that doesn't mean you're growing further. That's what he says. Who understands all this? The self, your action, What actions take you there? How to keep going? What is impeding you? Kavayopyatra mohita. It's a fabulous statement. Even the wise don't understand this, Arjuna. The implication is, how are you going to understand? You are nowhere close to wise. That's what he's telling Arjuna. Therefore, I'll again teach you. Because there's no way. The wise have not understood where you're going to understand. So let me again teach you. This is what he's saying here. I shall teach you action. Now all of you should say, what were we doing the whole third chapter? Karma Yoga. So same applies to you also. Do you remember anything? Which karma, what yoga? Wise don't understand. It just goes. So the subtle message here is again and again. Varam varam. You have to keep going through this knowledge. There's no way you understood. No way. Understanding means enlightenment. So where you understood? It's just degrees. So again I'll teach you, Arjuna, even though I just taught you. Because the wise don't understand. How you're going to understand? Right? So it's important. It's not, it's half joking, but it's serious in the sense you must have that humility. That's why if you remember at the end of every chapter of the Gita, when we finish a chapter, we chant the first verse, right? Because we have the humility to say to ourselves, just because we finished a chapter doesn't mean we've understood. We have to go back again. So you chant the first verse as a reminder of that. Gahana karmano gatihi. Gahana means deep. Gati, nature. Karma of action. Deep is this nature of action. Action comes from desires. Desires come from thoughts. Thoughts come from vasanas. Vasanas arise from the self. Where we've understood anything. Simply whatever thought comes in our head, we act. Very, very surface. How we live our life. So you got to go deep. That's what he's going to talk about now in the 17th verse. Yeah. Umesh, you had a question?
Yeah, Gautamji, sorry for taking you back a little bit, but in 14th, can you please again explain, he who knows me thus is not bound by action?
No, the same thing what we were just talking about, a person who understands the self is the inactive principle and the self is actually the goal of all your action. See, he who knows me in the sense, what are you looking for through action? All of us are acting, right? Why are we acting? To gain happiness. Simple. The goal of life is to gain happiness. So all our actions are directed towards one thing and one thing alone, to gain happiness. And where does true happiness lie? In the self, nowhere else. Everything else is a false show. It seems like happiness. After that mask comes off, you just see sorrow. That's the world. It's a mask of happiness. It's not happiness. So those who don't understand that, they pursue the world blindly and get more and more attached, develop more desires, become more sorrowful. But he who knows me thus, he who understands this cycle, will pursue the self with this knowledge and will not be bound by actions, in the sense his actions will not create further desires. They will in fact reduce existing desires. See, every action you do should be directed towards reducing your existing desires and evolving. Versus every action we are doing now is actually increasing those vasanas, those desires for that same object, because you're mentally indulging in it. So bound. Before the birth happens, only bound. Grandchild. What is happening? Baby shower, when are we doing? What's the expected date? Boy, girl. Before birth, fully bound. After birth, where's the chance? No chance. You understand? So it's like that. Everything we do, that is the significance of the Chakravayu and Abhimanyu. No? We know how to get in. Nobody knows how to get out. That's the significance of that. Abhimanyu was Arjuna's son. He got caught in a formation in the battle. He knew how to get in, but he didn't know how to get out. And he died. So it's all symbolic. So you go into the battlefield of life, you know how to get in. Anybody knows that. Nothing you have to do. You're already in. Don't worry. How did I know how to get in? It's already in. Point is how to get out, that you don't know. So bound. Everything else you get more sucked in. This is called samsara. Samsara sagarat. The endless ocean of samsara. Samsara is this worldly entanglement. Unending. Ocean. Literally. Grandchild and then the daughter-in-law. Where is the chance? Which Vedanta? What is it? Forget it, man. Umesh, you will become expert, don't worry. You know about getting bound to action. Wait. 17.
कर्मणोऽप्यपि बोद्धव्यम् बोद्धव्यम् च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यम् गहना कर्मणो गतिः.
Verily, action should be known. Karma. Api bodhavyam. Bodhavyam means to be known. Bodhavyam cha vikarma. Vikarma means forbidden action. Inaction should be known. Gahana karmano gatihi. So I just quoted that before we chanted it, right? The nature of action is deep, impenetrable. So, what we must first understand, this is what we teach in any introduction to Vedanta, to the Gita. What we don't realize from the time we are born, that only human beings have this Purushartha, the choice of action. No other being in this universe can even conceive it, forget, execute it. They don't have a choice. A tiger is born a tiger, it lives a tiger's life, it will die a tiger. Exactly same, exact. Not 1 inch it moves. Ant is born an ant, lives the life of an ant, dies an ant. You can be born a sinner, you can die an enlightened saint. This much it can go from one end of the spectrum to the other. Vice versa also. You can have lovely parents, virtuous parentage and family, and have all the facilities and become the worst criminal. There are people like that. Up, down, or remain the same, whatever it is. But only humans have a choice. So many years ago, we had that shooting, right? Some Sandy Hook, remember, in a very sad incident. In that same incident, one fellow went in and is shooting kids who he has nothing to do with, children. And one of the boys there, he literally gave himself up to save his friends, right? He caught attention to himself and told his friends, run, and he died. So in that same room, here's a person who is taking lives of innocent children for no reason. And in that same room, there's a boy who's giving his life up for strangers for no reason. Just see. And if you look at both of them, this boy was older. If maybe you looked at his picture when he was the same age as that boy who gave his life, they would probably look the same. You won't be able to. They're both human beings. Same town. How do you explain that? You have the choice. So that's what he says. Action should be known. Since you have the choice, you better understand how to choose. Right? So, action. Now what you must understand in the orthodox nomenclature, how they have defined action. So in fact, in the Upanishads, action means only action which takes you to the self. They don't know any other type of action. They don't regard it as worth discussing also. Desire-ridden selfish action, they don't even discuss. So in the Isha Upanishad, they say that, Kurvanneveha karmani jijiviche chatam gum sama. Evam tvai. So he says there is only that path. May I live in this world for 100 years doing karma, action. So what it meant is, whatever is this lifespan, it should be spent in the action to get to the self. They don't understand any other action. So actions which get you to the self are your obligation. That's what Vedanta says. The only thing you're obliged to do is act in a way that will help you evolve. Every other action should be discarded. So in the Gita also, when Arjuna asked Krishna, are you saying I should give up action? He says, I didn't say that. You have to give up all actions except yajna, dana, tapa, sacrifice, service, and austerity, self-control. These are the three actions you cannot give up. All other actions you should give up. So those actions are divided into two categories. Obligatory actions. Nitya karma is your regular routine obligatory duties. Remember that. So you get up every morning to do your study. That's a nitya karma. It's a regular routine obligation. Then you have to take care of your body through exercise so that you can keep growing. You need a healthy body. So it's a regular exercise you have to do. For most people, it's become naimittika, special occasional, special occasions are exercise. It's not going to work. You understand? So, nitya karma, regular routine obligations. Naimittika karma is special occasional obligatory duties. You have to do both. So at times there are instances where it's not a regular routine thing you have to do, but it's a special occasional thing. See, your neighbor is having a health episode and needs to be taken to the emergency room. He calls you. God knows when that 911 is coming. I think I'm having a heart attack. Suppose he calls you. Excuse me, I'm studying. I'm on chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita right now. I can't. You can't say. You understand? It's a special occasional duty which supersedes the regular routine duty. Somebody is unwell, like I just gave an example, or there's a special occasion, some whatever. So you should know this. So a truly spiritual person is always aware. The intellect is aware. What do I ought to do on a day-to-day basis versus what I like to do or don't like to do. You don't indulge in that. And you're always ready to do your special occasional duties. But if that neighbor is unwell and every day requires help, you're not obliged to do that. You understand? But yes, occasionally you're obliged. Then there is vikarma. Vikarma means forbidden action. So in the olden days, for the illiterates, they used to give a list of forbidden actions like stealing or, immoral actions, whatever it is. There's a list. Coveting others' property and swindling, cheating, stealing. But intellectually, that has no meaning. What is vikarma? What is forbidden action? What becomes forbidden action for an intellectual? Huh?
Anything takes you against you.
And anything that takes you to the self. So it is any action which you believe you ought not to do. It depends upon your intellectual conviction, your conscience. Yes, I have chosen a particular path in life. I ought not to do this. So I accepted one invitation for my friends. He's an old friend, his son's wedding. I'm not going to go to 7 parties. The fellow has nothing else to do. What to do? A friend called me. See, he said, once it's okay, I have an obligation to the guy. But I'm not going to go 6 more times and spend every night, late night with the same fellow doing the same things, right? So you got to have a conviction to say no. Most people can't. They succumb to their weak emotions. So you have to decide what is forbidden for you. And once you decide, you better not compromise. Otherwise, you will never achieve anything. And akarma, inaction, refers to the Atman, the self, which I have explained to you. It doesn't act itself. It is the enlivening principle. So akarma, inaction, means the self, the divinity, the divine principle is the goal of your karma. So karma takes you to akarma. That's why he says the nature of action is impenetrable. So, like I've been explaining since the beginning of today's session, it's not easy. First of all, we don't have the knowledge. Even if you understand all this intellectually, it means today you're going to start applying it. Your mind is so strong, it just destroys your intellect. Whatever intellect you have is gone. And you start justifying your actions. Everybody does that. After all, my family. After all, they're all vikarma. All forbidden actions you justify. So it's not easy. That's what he's trying to say. Hmm.
The statement you made, karma takes you to akarma, that's a higher state, right? But akarma by itself is tamas.
Akarma by itself is tamas.
Is
No,
it-
you're
is it-
translating akarma as not acting. He's not talking about that in this context. Akarma here refers to the self which enlivens action. Itself doesn't do anything. In fact, you're right, because this misunderstanding of this principle has made people in India inactive. I'm talking from thousands of years. This misunderstanding of inaction and renunciation. So you got to be very careful. That's why he says it's not easy to understand. And you justify your tamas. Tamas means laziness by saying, yeah, see, inaction. And whole Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight, literally to kill. It's gone to that extent, and still people don't understand. He's telling him to fight and kill his own kith and kin on the other side.
So in this context, it is referred to.
Yeah, you have to see the
but
context,
other-
no?
okay, other places it's tamas.
I mean, in a very surface level, you could say inaction should be known in the sense avoid tamas. But that's not the flavor here. He's talking about how difficult it is to understand the inactive self and the actions. More because of the misunderstanding that God is responsible for your life. That's why they use the word inaction in that context. No, it is not. Atman, God, self is a sakshi, is witness. It doesn't act. Without it, you can't act. After all that understanding, something good happens, you'll still say, thank God. Something bad happens, why did God do this to me? See, people, it's so deeply ingrained. So deeply ingrained. So throughout the Gita, he says he's inactive. He's a sakshi. I don't do anything.
So if something good happens to you,
Hmm.
how do you express gratitude? How do you express?
If something good happens, how do you express gratitude? See, gratitude is to be expressed again towards the person or situation which has caused that to you, right? So, gratitude requires action to repay. So, where's inaction in that principle? So, something good happens to you, it's your own karma, your own action, right? It's like saying, something good happened to me, I got an A grade in the exam. What gratitude? You worked hard, you got it. But you should be grateful towards those who enabled that action, enabled you to put in that effort. That is where gratitude comes in. So, your teachers who taught you, your parents who brought you up, you should have that feeling of gratitude everywhere towards society who enables all your actions. I told you, I always think how much food I've eaten, right? From birth till now. How many kilos or pounds of food? Thousands and thousands. You know how many people have grown that food? Are you even aware? Somebody is breaking their backs to grow the food you eat. That is gratitude. You must be always willing to repay. Of course, that is very general. You can't go, on Tuesday I ate this, who grew that? Now I'm going to Chile to repay a blueberry. You're mad fellows. It's not like that. It is an attitude. But when there's a direct cause and effect, like your parents have 20 years of their life, even more, they have done for you. When they need to be served, I don't care. So So gratitude is always towards people who have enabled your action or helped you in anything. You've got this knowledge, those of you who are benefiting from it, it's your obligation that others should also know this knowledge. You can't just keep it to yourself. So that is gratitude. You understand? How do we? It's like that, anything. Yes, Chitra, you had something?
Yes, Gautamji. Thank you for taking my question. It's about the topic that you were discussing right before the topic of gratitude. And it was about the essential difference between humans and animals. And I'm very confused about the nature nurture part of it. And if I may please use your Sandy Hook example for this, because two reasons. You said it, and I've been living in that place for 14 years. So I believe that the shooter did what he did based on nurture, and the experiences that he had later in his early teens and later kids. And animal behavior also can be modified. Like you see wild tigers in sanctuaries with humans, they learn to become docile. So my confusion here is it nature or is it nurture? And where does vasana fit in? And if you could please clarify this. I know it's the choice that humans have, and is the choice to find better satsang? That's my question.
No. See, go one thing at a time. Now, when you talk of animals, right, that particular animal has no choice than to become like that in that environment. It is so their vasanas will react to the environment in a particular way. There's no choice in that. So when they have to put in effort to kill, they will be active. When the food is provided, they'll be sleeping. Now, what is the big problem in that? Humans is not like that. Humans have the choice how to react to the environment. Now, suppose you are in that environment, that person is placed in, would you be shooting? So that depends upon your vasanas and how you react. It's totally independent. And your vasanas are a result of your own past actions. So suppose you say, what to do. I have, when I see a bottle, I have no choice. I have to drink it. That's because you have created such a force from the past, you're forced. An animal will never eat what is not supposed to eat. Unless it's hanging around human beings. You force it. I know one family in Punjab. Any dog has come to their house has died in a few months. You understand? There is no being which has survived. Even human beings have almost died, but because even human beings, because I'm from there, I know even human beings they go on feeding. But humans at least have a choice to say no. Dog, if you force feed it, what can it do? Died. Have you ever heard of dying of overfeeding? Only there. So, the poor thing has no choice. It's like that. Unless they're with humans. So, they have a particular vasana and they express it. And that could be dependent on the environment. That's what you're saying. But it's their nature. They will react like that to that change in the environment. Humans is not like that. You have an independent choice. Yes, Roxanne.
I'll call it good and bad action. It seems like a real knife edge that we deal with every day and could be very tricky in our progress. And is a practical basis an alarm that you can give yourself, the degree to which you're rationalizing that? And then that also makes daily study in the morning all that more important because that alarm goes off.
Yes,
faster.
Yes, that is the whole point. This knowledge is so volatile and your attachment and mind is so powerful that you have to constantly give yourself that reminder, that reflection every morning. That's why it's the most important part of your spiritual journey, is that hour you spend early morning to study and reflect on these truths. But that will build the intellect. But the problem is, if the mind is stronger than the intellect, then it can hijack the intellect. This is what happens. And at that point, you will not know. Because the only thing which can help you is your intellect. And the intellect itself is not there. You believe it's there, but it's not there. The mind has overpowered it. That's the deadly nature of rationalization or justification, right? So in justification or rationalization, what is happening? The mind has a strong desire, and the intellect is not strong enough to analyze apart from the influence of the desire. What is intellect? True intellect can analyze apart from the influence of the mind's desire. That is a real intellect. So when the intellect is not strong, the mind's desire is so much, it hijacks the intellect and makes the intellect reason in favor of the desire. So fellow has a tremendous desire for a drink before he drives. So this is how the intellect will analyze. That fellow never drinks and drives. He's had 2 accidents. I have had drinks and driven 5 times in the past, no accident. Therefore, one further road. Now, what can you talk to a person like that? He believes he is reasoning. And I'm giving you a thing which nobody can argue against. Now, to him, it's so clear. But he's not reasoning. It's basically his desire to have a drink which is making him find reasons. It's not reasoning. So our mind does that all the time. Especially what you call obligation. It's far furthest thing from your obligation. What to do? You're so attached to your family or friends or status. It's my obligation. And you're very convinced. And no power in this world can tell you. So the only way to protect yourself against that is, before you get into a situation where you know your mind is powerful, that time you must take the advice of somebody who's objective, who has a better intellect than you. It's like you can't take decisions on your health. You have to surrender to a doctor, right? It's like that. I think this medicine looks the best in my cabinet. Chalo. Maybe so that should work, no? Now, what can you talk? It's literally like that. So especially in areas of life where you very significant, important decisions, make sure you don't use your intellect. I mean, alone, because there could be a chance of this. So consult somebody who has a better intellect. Yeah, Ajay.
Gautamji, I need a little clarification. I'm very confused with mind. In physical form, when I think about mind, I start thinking about as a brain, but intellectual is buddhi. And when we talk about mind, something, it's about emotions. So is it from the body? Is it like heart, or it's just the formless thing with emotions?
So this is I'm glad you asked, because everybody should know this. See, the whole problem is that people consider both intellect and mind as one thing. This is the whole problem. Even in science, in modern thinking. And that's why nobody gets anywhere. So thousands of years ago, in fact in the Gita also, he clearly defines in the 2nd chapter, there's a manaha, which is the mind, and a buddhi, which is the intellect. Now both are part of the subtle body, which is thoughts. So here they consider thoughts as mind. It's not that. Mind is that aspect of your thoughts which run by themselves to the world. These feelings, desires. I like this, I don't like this. It's just a flow of a feeling, of an emotion from you to the world. That is mind. Now, apart from that is something completely different which can analyze, understand that feeling and decide what you should do with it. That is intellect. Now, if you club the whole thing together, what are you going to understand anything, right? The whole goal of philosophy is to build an intellect. That is philosophy, which can reason apart from the mind. Now, those who consider them one is because they are one with it. There is no intellect. Now, how will they think as a different? They don't know and understand what is intellect. Fascinating. Like, I think Schopenhauer said that. Intellect is invisible to the man who has none. And Swamiji my Guru often says that. The biggest problem in my life to communicate this knowledge is you need an intellect to understand you don't have an intellect. Now what can you do? Right? It's like going to an asylum. All the fellows there think they're sane. The minute one of those fellows thinks there's something wrong with him, he's sane. You understand? He doesn't need to be in the asylum if he understands he's insane. All the fellows there are perfectly convinced they're fully sane. Today morning I'm having breakfast with the Queen. I'm having lunch with Tom Cruise. I'm having dinner with Mother Teresa. He believes that's his schedule for the day. Now, what can you... That's why he's sitting in the asylum. And one fellow has to come in the morning. I'm... what did I say? King. I'm King Charles. Oh yeah, I was expecting you for breakfast. Then warden has to come in and have breakfast with this guy. Now, what can you do? So, it's pure mind. There's no intellect at all. This is insanity. And when the intellect starts functioning 25%, mind goes down to 75%, you're hysterical. Sometimes there is intellect functioning. Most of the times you're blowing up. This is hysteria. Would you like something to eat? Who told you to ask me if I want something? Mad. One thing you say, blow up. Hysteria. This is 25% mind, 75% mind, 25. Then 50% mind, 50% intellect is who? Eccentric, moody. Sometimes they're so nice. How are you today? Very good. Next day you talk, you shut up. Yesterday you were so good, or today what happened? Eccentric, moody. 75% intellect, 25% emotional. Still bad. 100% intellect, 0% mind is sane. Just sane. I'm not enlightened. Sane. You can deal with that person. It's not that they don't have emotions. The emotions don't decide what you do. See, right now, looking at your faces, if I feel like crying, usually I do. So I go on crying. Whole class will be crying only. Intellect should be there, no? They're not worth the... But why should you cry, whatever you can do. You understand? You can't just go by what you feel. So right from sane, emotional, eccentric, hysterical, insane, 100% mind functioning, no intellect is insanity. They're the ones actually in the asylum. Because you can't do anything. It's just the mind functioning. Whatever impulse comes in the mind, they do it. They can't be living with human beings. It will be a disaster. That's why they're committed. Paresh, don't ask me now where do I fit in and all. Huh? I don't know. You won't like the answer. Go ahead.
Hariom Gautamji, this is Chakshu.
Yes, you write Paresh and you are Chakshu. Open your eyes, please, Chakshu. Chakshu means eyes. He's written her husband's name.
I have a quick question, Gautamji. So, certain times it's easy to differentiate between whether this thought is coming from the intellect or the mind, right? Say, for example, if I feel like I want to sleep more, I know that this is wrong. The mind is playing, and I need the intellect is telling me, no, wake up, you need to do your morning study.
Okay.
But certain decisions like these are pretty clear, but there are certain the decisions which we take, which are hard to figure out whether this is the emotions or the mind that's speaking, or is it the right decision coming from the intellect. So how do we differentiate between those kind of tricky situations?
That's what I was explaining to Roxanne. See, if your intellect is weak, the emotion takes over and you won't know. So, the more you have intellect, the more you have clarity in life. This is what we all need, is clarity of thinking. You're clear. What clarity means, you're clear. This is my mind and this is what ought to be done. And I will not succumb to the mind. Now, to get to that level of clarity takes a lot of effort and time. So before that, obviously the mind, which is much stronger than the intellect, will keep on overpowering it and you'll be confused all the time. This thing is very easy because this doesn't require much intellect. Yes, I'm being lazy here, and this is what I need to do. So these are small things, but where you're attached, involved, you won't know. That's why I said before you take major decisions in those areas, you need to consult somebody who has a better intellect. You need to borrow an intellect, in other words. So, see, like one fellow, he lost his whole life savings. He's a doctor, and I mean, patient after patient, you see, day after day, you build up. He was middle-aged by then. And one of his friends said, we invested in these hotels here in America. Hotels and all that, 15% return guaranteed. That's how they talk. What, you're getting 8% in your return guarantee. Now, that greed comes up and your friends around you are doing it. You know how many cases I know people who've lost everything or most of what they have? It's just greed. But you are so consumed by that greed, you won't know. I remember telling my grandmother when I was 10 years old. This is not a joke. She was talking once and she had investments in all these companies and all, like in the stocks. I'm putting the 40 years ago. And she was widowed by then. So those were her life. Of course, she was taken care of, but for her personal, that was it, And she was talking to some friend. I'm putting it, we have her cousins or big industrialists in Mumbai, and they have these factories and all that. Hey, they told me to put the money there. All the money, much higher rate of interest. All the families in her circle, they were doing that. And that day I told her, why are you doing this? These companies look so much strong. I mean, they are well known and all, and this thing is your family. Who knows these people? What do you know, idiot? Number is he telling me? I must be 10, 11, literally, not more than that. But I kept quiet. I maybe not knowing. A few years later, everything she lost. Big amount, not a small amount. I am still regretting. I would have inherited something, Yeah. Nothing I got. So, there is no intellect at all. For them it's very clear. Everybody is doing it. They are big industrialists. After all, they are my family. That is the first red flag. Anybody stay away from them financially. And now your question is how I'm confused. Of course you're confused because you have that greed for that extra 3%, 4%. Everybody has it. And everybody around you is doing it. What is that scheme here? 50 billion, no? Mid-off. You all remember? Charitable trust put their money with that guy. You understand? In my life, in my own dream also, even if all of you told me. Especially if all of you told me. Zero. One thing starts. Charitable trust put all the billions of dollars with that fellow. What can you say? So the whole world is corrupt. For that extra 2%, you're willing to risk all your life savings. Can't understand. But where you're greedy, you won't know. That time you believe, at the bottom of your heart you believe. Nothing can happen. Otherwise, why would you do it? But it's all your mind. There's no intellect function. It's just greed. You won't know. So all I'm saying is, before you put your money with some friend, just wait and ask somebody. Ask some proper advisor or whatever. Don't ask me. I have no time for all this. But basic principles I'm telling you. Andrea?
Yes, thank you, Gautamji. I have a quick question. So is the intellect somewhat like our conscience? Is that another way to think about it?
Intellect is the capacity to think, reason, analyze, and come to a conclusion. This is called conviction. So intellect is what builds your conviction in life. This is what ought to be done. I'm convinced due to thinking. And there are very few instances where, in spite of applying your intellect to your best capacity, you cannot come to a decision. And there is a voice within you which points to the higher values. So, should I help somebody or not? Should I help somebody or not? You're going through this, you can't come to a conclusion. And a voice will tell you, yes, you should help. Right? They have helped you in the past. So, that's called the conscience. Only in those few instances where, after a lot of application, you cannot come to a conclusion, I would recommend follow the conscience. Because 99% of the time you should follow your conviction. You must analyze, understand, come to a proper conclusion. Take advice, whatever it is, and come to a proper conclusion. So you are deciding which doctor to go for surgery. You can't say, my conscience said. When I walked into the room with that doctor, something told me. They don't know something, know this thing. Go by facts and figures. How many surgeries has it been done? What is the rating? Who's the recommendation? What is the institution? Which hospital? All that, you come to a conviction. You can't go by I felt. But very rarely there's a crisis, right? A dilemma. And there is a voice within you which always points to the higher. It will always tell you to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. It will always choose unselfishness, not selfishness. That's when you should choose it. In fact, that is also part of your conscience, is a part of your subtle intellect. Subtle intellect is that intellect which says there's something beyond the world, the self. That is the spiritual part of you. Conscience is the voice of that subtle intellect functioning in the world. You understand? Topic for Tuesday? Tuesday discussion. See, I have to give you, because otherwise on themselves they come up with some God knows what. It's a good topic to discuss for the small group discussion. So, how do we say conscience is part of the subtle intellect? It's a good question. So that's the time you should choose your conscience, right? Got it? So we'll read 18 and I'll explain it next time, but let's read it and start the thought flow.
Karmanya karmaya pashyet akarmani cha karmaya sabuddhiman manushyeshu sayuktah kritsna karma krit.
He who sees inaction in action, akarma, karmani, and action in inaction, is wise amongst men. He is a yogi, a doer of all action. So, what he's talking about here, having explained this whole concept of inaction, action, and what takes you to that state of the self, he says, now how do you get to that state? Is by recognizing the self in and through all your actions. That's what he's trying to say. He is a yogi, a doer of all action. He becomes that self which ultimately enlivens everything. So like I said, I'll explain it in detail next time, but it's a good place to stop so you can think about it, what's going on. So any questions, send them in. We'll take them on Wednesday, and otherwise we will meet next weekend as usual. Hari Om.